She thought her fiancé died 5 years ago, but he was a billionaire CEO and engaged to her best friend. She mourned him for 5 years thinking he was dead, but the truth? He was alive and engaged to her best friend. The cruelest part? He didn't remember her, not their love, not the night he promised he'd come back. But the heart never forgets. Now, fate brings them face to face again, only this time as strangers. Before we continue, if you enjoy touching and inspiring stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Now, let's get back to the story. Isabel, I think Adrian's gone. The words had shattered her world. They weren't screamed or sobbed. They were whispered. Over a bad phone connection, through shaky breaths, from a nurse in a small emergency room in Florence, Italy. A landslide, a collapsed road, an overturned car with no ID left inside. Burnt beyond recognition. They had found a wallet outside the vehicle, partially scorched but still readable. Adrian Blake. That day, her heart didn't just break. It stopped believing in happy endings. Sometimes, when grief blurred the edges of memory, she still dreamed of simpler times. A blue bike, gravel underfoot, and someone older running beside her, shouting, "Faster, little bro." Wait. No, that wasn't her memory. It was his. Adrian had told her once about the brother he lost when he was a kid. She never asked much more. He never brought it up again. Now, 5 years later, Isabel Hart stood outside a towering glass building in Manhattan, clutching a company ID badge that felt far heavier than it should. Blake Industries, the same name that used to make her heart beat faster, now sent a cold wave through her spine. He was dead, wasn't he? She had accepted it, cried for him, lit candles on his birthday, talked to a grave with no body inside it. She had survived it all, somehow. But then, 2 weeks ago, her friend from college, Hannah, now working in tech journalism, had sent her a link. "Have you seen this?" She hadn't. But when she clicked, time collapsed. A photo, a face she would know even in her dreams. Adrian, alive and different. He was no longer the backpacking architecture graduate who kissed her in train stations and burned toast every morning. This Adrian wore $1,000 suits and stared into cameras like he didn't know how to smile anymore. The article headline had read, "Adrian Blake, the billionaire CEO who rose from nowhere after a tragic accident." After a tragic accident. There it was, again, the space between the truth and what she knew, Ruth. What the article didn't say was who he used to be, who she had been to him, and what tore her insides more than anything else. At the bottom of the page was a photo of Adrian on a red carpet, holding hands with a woman in a crimson dress, smiling, confident, familiar, Marissa Lane, her best friend, her best. Or so she thought. They had cried together at Adrian's death, shared tissues, memories, long walks to nowhere. Marissa had pulled Isabel out of bed after 3 weeks of silence. Now she stood beside the man Isabel once thought she'd marry, hand in hand, as if none of that had ever happened. The world had moved on, except Isabel. "First day?" A friendly voice broke through her spiral. She looked up. A guy, probably in his 20s, adjusted his lanyard and smiled. "Yeah," she said, managing a nod. "Don't worry. The first week at Blake is like swimming with sharks. But if you keep your head down, you survive." He chuckled. "I'm Leo, software department. You?" "Isabel, marketing." "Nice. You're probably under Kara then. She's intense but fair. You'll be fine." Isabel offered a polite smile, but inside, her chest tightened. She wasn't here to be fine. She was here because she needed to see it for herself. If it was real, if he really didn't remember her, if Marissa had truly taken her place. The elevator ride to the 47th floor felt like rising through layers of a nightmare, each ding closer to a reality she never imagined living. As she stepped out into the sleek, ultra-modern office space, a voice called from behind. You dropped your badge." She turned and froze. Everything around her blurred because walking toward her, holding out her badge, was the ghost she thought she'd buried in Florence. Adrian Blake. Alive. So close she could hear the soft tap of his shoes on the marble floor. So real she could see the tiny scar near his temple, one he didn't have before. But those eyes, those same deep blue-gray eyes that once stared into hers and promised forever. Now, they didn't flicker with recognition. Not even a spark. He looked right at her, and didn't see her. Just a stranger. "Oh, thank you," she managed, taking the badge from his hand, her fingers brushing his by accident. For a second, just one, something in his expression shifted, the slightest tension. A pause in breath, but then he blinked. Gone. "You're new?" His voice was calm, clipped, CEO polished. "Yes," Isabel said, keeping her voice steady. "Marketing team." He nodded once. "Welcome to Blake Industries." She wanted to scream. To shake him, to say her name, to ask if he remembered the little cafe in Venice where he proposed. The dog-eared copy of Wuthering Heights he left notes in for her. The day they got lost in the mountains and kissed under a sky full of stars. But she couldn't, because he was looking at her like she was just another employee. And worse? From the hallway behind him, Marissa appeared, heels clicking like a metronome of control, her smile sharp as ever. She slid her arm around Adrian's like it belonged there and kissed his cheek. "Adrian, the car's downstairs," she said, brushing a perfect lock of hair behind her ear. He gave a brief nod, never glancing back at Isabel. And as they walked away, Isabel stood frozen. The man she once loved didn't know who she was. And her best friend now walked in her place. Back at her desk, Isabel sat down slowly. The room buzzed with normalcy, ringing phones, typing fingers, coffee mugs, but her heart was unraveling. She couldn't tell him, not like this. What would she even say? He wasn't just missing memories. He had built a life without her. And yet, when their hands had touched, something flickered. A pause, like a page halfway turned, a shadow of something lost. Maybe the heart remembers what the mind forgets. Maybe, just maybe, there was still time. But if Marissa had lied once, how far would she go to keep the truth buried? The next morning, Isabel stood by the office window, cradling a paper cup of burnt coffee. Her reflection in the glass looked unfamiliar. Tired eyes, lips pressed tight to keep secrets in. It had only been one day, and already she felt like she was drowning in a life that wasn't hers anymore. Across the glass partition, Adrian sat at the head of the executive boardroom. He was unreadable. Crisp suit, calm posture, fingers laced as he listened to a financial analyst ramble about projections and market shifts. Not once did he glance her way, but Isabel couldn't stop watching him. Every tilt of his head, every frown, every pause before speaking. It was all him. The man who once built her a shelf because she said she needed a place for memories. The man who used to burn pancakes on Sundays and laugh like he didn't care. Except now, he didn't laugh. And the woman who made him smile now was Marissa. That afternoon, during a break between onboarding sessions, Isabel walked into the lounge. She barely had time to grab a tea when a voice behind her froze her in place. "I almost didn't recognize you." Isabel turned slowly. Marissa Lane stood by the counter, arms crossed, smile tight as a bowstring. Her flawless face betrayed no surprise, only calculation. "You knew I worked here?" Isabel asked, her voice low. Marissa sipped from a glass of cucumber water. "Of course. HR told me I'm part of executive management now." "Remember?" "Right. Of course she was." "You could have said something," Isabel muttered. Marissa tilted her head. "Would that have changed anything?" The silence between them was thick. "You look tired," Marissa added, her voice too sweet. "But I guess this place does that, especially when you're starting over." Isabel clenched her fists. "Why didn't you tell me?" Marissa's smile thinned. "Tell you what?" "That he was alive." Marissa stared at her for a long moment. "Because I didn't know, Izzy. Not at first. You think I wouldn't have called you?" Isabel didn't answer, because part of her had already started to wonder if Marissa had known before the media did. If she had seen that scar on his temple and whispered lies into his silence before the truth had a chance to surface. "I'm not the villain here," Marissa said quietly, stepping closer. "Adrian lost his memory. He woke up in a hospital with no name, no past, no one looking for him. I found him 6 months later at a private rehab facility in Vermont. He didn't remember anything, not even himself." "But you remembered him," Isabel whispered. Marissa didn't deny it. "I helped him," she said instead. "When everyone else thought he was just a John Doe, I stayed. I fought for him when no one else would." "You took him," Isabel said, voice trembling. "I saved him," Marissa snapped. Their eyes locked, and for the first time, the polished surface of Marissa's charm cracked. "I'm the one he knows now," she said, quieter. "Not you." Isabel felt her throat tighten, but she held her ground. "You can lie to him all you want, but his heart remembers me." Marissa's jaw clenched. And just like that, she turned, walking out with heels echoing like gunshots across the tiles. That evening, Isabel stayed late. Not because she had to, but because something kept her glued to her desk. Like if she left, she'd lose the last thread tying her to the past. Around 7:40 p.m., the office was mostly empty. Except him. Adrian stood alone near the window at the far end of the floor, looking out at the skyline. The lights of the city painted reflections across the glass, dancing like ghosts behind him. She watched him for a while, then quietly approached. "Long day?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. He turned. His face didn't soften, but his eyes seemed heavier. "Always," he said. They stood in silence, the city humming below. "You don't remember me, do you?" Isabel asked suddenly, unable to stop herself. Adrian blinked, the question catching him off guard. She regretted it instantly. But instead of brushing it off, he tilted his head slightly. "Should I?" Her throat went dry. "No," she lied. I thought I saw you once. Years ago? Somewhere else? It's probably nothing." He studied her, as if trying to place something he couldn't quite name. "I've been told I have a familiar face," he said. "You do," she said softly. The silence stretched. And then, "Sometimes I get flashes," Adrian said suddenly, eyes still on the city. "Dreams. Pieces of places I don't recognize. Faces. Feelings. It's like walking through fog." Isabel's heart caught. He looked down at his watch, breaking the moment. "I should go. Marissa's waiting." Of course she was. Adrian turned, took a few steps, then paused. "Your name?" he asked, not looking back. "Isabel," she said quietly. He gave the smallest nod, then disappeared down the hallway, but his voice had softened. Just enough. As Isabel packed her things to leave, she pulled open the side pocket of her backpack and found something that hadn't been there before. A folded napkin from the cafe downstairs, her tea from earlier. Someone had scribbled on it. Sometimes the heart remembers what the mind forgets. No name, no context, just that. She stared at it, breath trembling. Was it from him or from someone who had overheard? Either way, it was a sign. She wasn't crazy. Something inside him was still reaching for her, but if she wanted to bring him back, she'd have to be brave enough to stay in his world, even if it meant watching him love someone else. For now. Marissa stood in front of her mirror, adjusting her pearl earring with practiced ease. Behind her, the skyline glowed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse Adrian had bought 6 months ago. Everything looked perfect. But perfection, she knew, was a performance. One mistake, and the illusion shattered. She stepped back, smoothing the front of her silk robe, her eyes falling to the vanity drawer, locked. Inside it, a leather notebook she never opened any more. The one where she had written his name 1,000 times when they were in college. The one that used to hold every secret she never said aloud, about how she watched Adrian fall in love with Isabel instead of her, how she smiled through their engagement like it didn't hurt, how she helped plan the proposal because Isabel asked her to, and then the accident happened. She hadn't caused it, she hadn't even wished for it, but when fate gave her the silence, she had filled it with a new story. And Adrian had believed it, because when he woke up, she was the only person who knew his real name. Now that story was threatened because Isabel was here. And even without memories, Adrian felt her. Marissa could see it in his pauses, his distractions, the way his eyes followed the woman he was supposed to have forgotten. No, she wasn't going to lose him again, not after everything she had sacrificed. In the days that followed, Adrian became harder to read. He still showed up on time, still gave sharp instructions in meetings, still signed contracts like his hands were machines. But there were cracks. He lingered by windows longer than usual, asked questions with less certainty, walked slower when Isabel passed by, like something inside him wanted to follow, but didn't know why. One morning during a board meeting, Kara from marketing pitched a campaign idea using emotionally driven storytelling. Adrian nodded, and then unexpectedly turned to Isabel. What's your take on this? Everyone looked up. Isabel hesitated. She wasn't even supposed to speak. She was still shadowing team leads. But his eyes were on her, waiting. I think emotions connect faster than features, she said cautiously. People don't buy products, they buy feelings. Adrian's eyes stayed on her for just a beat too long. Then he gave a small nod. Noted. Later that day, as she walked down the hallway toward the break room, she felt a presence behind her. Isabel. She turned. It was him, Adrian. And for the first time there was something different in his voice, softer, like a memory trying to find words. Do I make you nervous? He asked suddenly. She blinked. What? He shrugged slightly. In meetings, you avoid eye contact. She hesitated. You make a lot of people nervous, Mr. Blake. I didn't ask about people. I asked about you. There it was again, that flicker. That sense that deep down something inside him knew her. She looked away. We all carry things, she said gently. Some just don't fit into words. Adrian didn't respond. Just stood there, silent, still. Then, you said something. Your first day here. She froze. He continued. You asked if I remembered you. She turned back to him, heart pounding. Yes. Why? Because you used to, she said. It slipped out before she could stop it. He took a slow step forward, his eyes narrowing just slightly. Did we meet before? Yes, she whispered. His breath caught just barely. Then he looked down at his hands, like they should remember something his mind couldn't. I see you, he said quietly, and I feel like I'm supposed to know more than I do. Isabel's eyes welled. He was so close. So close. Oh. But before she could say more, Marissa's voice echoed down the hall. There you are! She was suddenly beside them, looping her arm through Adrian's like it belonged there. I've been looking all over. Dinner with the investors is in an hour, remember? Adrian blinked, pulled back into the performance of his life. Right, he said, stepping away from Isabel. Marissa gave her a too sweet smile. Isabel, she said, are you okay? You look pale. I'm fine, Isabel said, backing away. I was just heading back to my desk. She walked fast, fighting the lump in her throat. Behind her, Marissa's voice was low, but she caught one word. Boundaries. That night, Isabel sat on the edge of her bed staring at an old photo in her hand. It was from a trip they took to Montauk. Her hair was wild from the wind. Adrian was kissing her cheek. Neither of them looked rich or important or lost, just real. She remembered how he used to tuck her hair behind her ear when she was upset. How he knew when she was lying, not with words but with her eyes. He had always seen her. Now he looked straight at her and saw nothing. But something had shifted. He had asked. He wanted to remember. And Marissa knew it, which meant it was only a matter of time before she made a move. Isabel had been silent long enough. Maybe the truth couldn't bring the past back, but it could stop the future from becoming a lie. The next morning, a message was waiting for her in the elevator. A handwritten note taped to the mirrored panel. No signature. "Tonight, rooftop, 10:30. Don't tell anyone." She stared at it, heart thudding. Was it from Adrian? Had he remembered something? Or was it a trap? She folded the note into her pocket and watched the floor numbers climb. By the time the doors opened, her decision was already made. She would go, because sometimes the only way to bring the truth into the light was to meet the lie in the dark. The rooftop was quiet. 10 stories above the heartbeat of Manhattan, Isabel stood wrapped in her coat, wind tugging gently at the ends of her copper-brown hair. The city below buzzed with lights and life, but up here everything felt still, like the past was holding its breath. She checked her phone again. 10:32 p.m. No messages, no footsteps. Just the low hum of air vents and the distant rhythm of traffic. Maybe it had been a mistake to come. Maybe the note wasn't from him. Maybe it was Marissa. Or worse, maybe it had all been in her head. But then, the rooftop door creaked open, and there he was. Adrian? He stepped into the moonlight. No jacket, sleeves rolled up, looking nothing like the billion-dollar CEO he was during the day, and everything like the man she used to love. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at her, searching for something he couldn't name. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said quietly. "I wasn't sure it was really you," she replied, voice barely above the wind. He walked closer, slow, like each step was peeling away a layer of doubt. "I found your badge photo," he said, "and I don't know why, but I couldn't stop thinking about it." Isabel held his gaze. "Because part of you still knows me." He looked away, eyes distant. "I've had dreams," he admitted. "Lately, strange ones. There's a train, a hand reaching for mine, laughter, then screaming, then nothing. And sometimes—" He paused, eyes distant. "I hear a voice, a boy's voice, calling me little bro, laughing, but I don't see a face." Isabel's breath caught. "That was the day of the accident," she said. "You were driving back from Tuscany. I was waiting at the station. We were supposed to meet in Rome." He blinked, as if trying to pull pieces from fog. "I've heard your voice before," he whispered. "Not in the office, in my dreams. I wake up, and it's there, like music I can't name." A tear slipped down Isabel's cheek. Unnoticed, he stepped closer. "I know Marissa. She's constant, safe. But with you—" He paused. "There's noise in my chest, like thunder I can't quiet." Isabel's lip trembled. "That noise?" she said softly. "That's love." Adrian looked at her then, truly looked, and something in his expression cracked. "I don't remember you," he said, his voice almost breaking. "But God, I feel you." She reached into her coat and pulled out a tiny object, a necklace, delicate, faded silver, a discreet, heart-shaped pendant. She held it out. "You gave me this," she said, "the night you proposed." He stared at it, his breath catching. "I remember a ring," he whispered, "a box, kneeling, but not her face, not Marissa's." "It wasn't hers," Isabel said. "It was mine." Silence. "Wind," a truth finally said aloud. Adrian took the necklace, turning it over slowly in his fingers. "I don't know who I am anymore," he said, pain flickering behind his eyes. "Every part of my life feels built on glass." Before he could speak again, the rooftop door opened hard. Marissa stepped out, heels sharp on the concrete, coat swirling in the wind. "You couldn't stay away, could you?" she said quietly, eyes fixed on Isabel. Adrian turned, startled. "Marissa?" She cut him off, voice calm but cold. "I stayed when no one else did. I sat by your bed. I fought for you." She turned to Isabel. "You weren't there." Isabel stood her ground. "They told me he died. I went to the funeral. I mourned him for years." Marissa's eyes narrowed. "And now you show up, hoping to rewrite everything." "I came back," Isabel said gently, "because he deserves to remember who he really is." A beat of silence. Adrian looked between them, torn, breath shallow, confusion flickering in his eyes. "I don't know who to believe," he said, barely above a whisper. "But I can't do this right now." He turned and walked away. Not in anger, not with resolution, just broken, leaving them both behind, the night colder than before. Later that night, Isabel sat alone in her apartment, replaying every word, every look, every breath. Her heart ached. He hadn't chosen her. But he hadn't chosen Marissa either. He was somewhere in between the past and the present, trying to crawl back to the truth inch by inch. And the worst part, he might remember too late. In the penthouse, Marissa poured herself a glass of wine, hands shaking. She'd seen the look in Adrian's eyes. He wanted to remember, and if that happened, everything she built would fall apart, unless she stopped it first. She walked to her locked drawer, pulled out her old journal, and stared at the one page she had ripped out years ago. A photo, blurry, taken from a distance. Isabel and Adrian in Italy. Holding hands. She thought she'd burned all the evidence, but one always slipped through the cracks. Her hands trembled as she picked up a lighter. The flame flickered, and the past, once again, was at risk of going up in smoke. Adrian couldn't sleep. It was well past 2 a.m., and the city outside his bedroom windows flickered with restless life. But inside his mind there was only silence, and her face, not Marissa's, hers, the woman with the green eyes that looked like home, the woman who had said things no stranger should know. Isabel. The name pulsed in his chest like it had always been there. He stared at the pendant she'd given him, small, delicate, sitting in his palm like a memory trying to breathe. It felt wrong to hide it. But he wasn't ready to show it either. He had been lied to once already. And if there was one thing Adrian Blake had learned in 5 years of building empires, it's that trust is more fragile than glass. The next morning, Isabel sat at her desk, staring at the same screen she hadn't touched in 10 minutes. Emails blurred together. The coffee tasted like cardboard. Her stomach hadn't unclenched since the rooftop confrontation. And yet, her phone buzzed. From unknown number. "I need to know the truth. Meet me, 6 p.m. No one else. Washington Square Park. Her hands trembled. He wanted answers. Maybe he was ready to hear them. But she also knew what that meant. She had to tell him everything, even the things that would hurt. Across town, in a private suite at Blake Industries, Marissa stood beside Adrian's assistant, Julie, holding a folder she had no business touching. "I just need access to his travel records," she said smoothly. "Personal file, vacation logs, anything before the accident." Julie hesitated. "I'm not sure I can—" Marissa leaned closer, voice quiet and dangerous. "He's my fiancé, Julie. I'm not asking." "I'm protecting—" Julie hesitated, then typed in a code. The screen unlocked. Marissa's eyes darted across the files, scrolling until she found it. Adrian Blake. Personal travel. Archive. 5 years ago, a train ticket. Florence to Rome. Date. The day of the accident. Her hands gripped the edge of the desk. He was going to see Isabel that day, and Isabel had never told him that. Marissa smiled bitterly. Truth was dangerous. But half-truths, those could destroy someone faster than any lie. That evening, the sun dipped low over Washington Square Park. Children played near the fountain. Musicians strummed guitars under the arch. Everything felt too peaceful for the storm about to break. Isabel stood by the bench near the west entrance, heart racing. Then she saw him. Adrian, alone, hands in pockets, eyes locked on hers like she was the only person in the world. "I came," he said. She nodded, swallowing hard. "Thank you." They sat in silence for a moment. Pigeons flittered across the pavement. Someone laughed nearby. Finally, Adrian spoke. "Tell me everything." She took a deep breath. "You were studying architecture. I was teaching English online and painting on the side. We met in Florence. We were both broke. We ate pasta from the same bowl because we couldn't afford two." He smiled faintly. She went on. "You told me I made you believe in slow love. We traveled together, got engaged in Venice. You gave me this." She held up the pendant around her neck. "You said it was small, but you wanted something close to my heart." He looked down at it, his eyes darkening. "You were supposed to meet me in Rome," she said softly. "But you never arrived. Then I got the call, the crash, the fire." She paused, her voice cracking. "They told me there was nothing left." Adrian looked away. "I searched hospitals, called embassies, but I was told over and over again, you were gone." He was silent for a long time. "I woke up in Vermont. No ID, no name, just headaches and confusion and her. Marissa," Isabel whispered. He nodded. "She said we were together, that I had been planning to propose." Isabel's heart dropped. "She told you that?" "Yes." He turned to her. "But when I saw you, Isabel, something inside me lit up. Like my ribs remembered how to hold something fragile." She held her breath. "But," he added, eyes narrowing, "why didn't you tell me everything the day you saw me?" "I tried," she whispered. "I was scared. You looked at me like I was a stranger. And Marissa," she had already rewritten the ending. Adrian stood slowly. "I want to believe you, but my life has been rebuilt on blank spaces. And now 2 different women are telling me 2 different truths." He looked down at her, not cold, but unsure. "I don't know who I am yet," he said. "But when I do, I'll know who you are too." And he walked away again, leaving her with nothing but hope and fear. Meanwhile, in a downtown gallery, Marissa stepped through the entrance of a quiet exhibit, heels clicking. On the far wall, a large canvas caught her eye, a painting, a familiar one. Adrian, sitting on stone steps, sketchbook in hand. Next to him, a woman with red hair laughing mid-spin. Marissa's eyes locked on the painting. She didn't need to read the plaque. She already knew the title, What I Almost Lost. Her jaw clenched. The plaque read, Artist Isabel Hart, year 2019. Medium, oil on canvas. Collection, Florence series. She stared at it for a long moment. Isabel's brushstrokes were soft, but the emotion hit like a punch. The way Adrian's smile tilted. The way Isabel leaned into him mid-laugh. It was raw, honest. And for a second, just one, something twisted in Marissa's chest. Not rage, not jealousy, something deeper. The quiet ache of knowing she had only ever been part of the aftermath. For a moment, Marissa didn't hate. She only wished she had been chosen. But the wish lasted less than a breath. Because chosen or not, Isabel was here, and she wouldn't leave alone. Then she blinked, straightened her back, hardened her gaze. People knew, people had seen. And if Adrian ever came here, the truth would hit like a bomb. Marissa's eyes darkened. It was time to stop playing defense. That night, Isabel returned home to find her apartment door slightly ajar. Her blood ran cold. She pushed it open carefully. Nothing seemed stolen, except her photo album was gone. The one with all the pictures of her and Adrian, the one she had hidden under her bed, on her mirror, written in lipstick. Some memories should stay buried. She stared at the words. Shaken. Marissa wasn't just scared now, she was ready for war. Adrian stood in the center of his penthouse living room, surrounded by silence. No music, no Marissa, just the strange weight of not knowing who you are, and slowly realizing someone might have built that identity for you. He stared at the pendant in his hand again, that little silver heart. It had become an anchor in a sea of doubt. There was one thing he was sure of now. He couldn't trust what he'd been told. Not fully, not without seeing the evidence himself. He needed answers, not emotions, not memories, facts. And if no one was going to give him the truth, he'd find it on his own. By noon, Adrian had cleared his afternoon schedule. He walked into Blake Industries' private records room, a digitized archive with security most employees didn't even know existed. The only two people with unrestricted access? Adrian himself and Marissa. He scanned his fingerprint and walked in. Rows of screens glowed to life. He typed, "Florence, Italy, 5 years ago?" Nothing. Then something caught his eye. An internal report marked Private File ML. He hesitated, then opened it. Missing person search initiated by Marissa Lane. Patient X, unidentified male. Post-trauma. Located at Eastbrook Rehabilitation Center, advised to avoid external contact until condition stabilizes. Advised to avoid external contact? He scrolled further. Attached was a scanned hospital intake form from Eastbrook. Patient name? Unknown. No emergency contact listed. But the signature under next of kin read, Marissa Lane. He stared at it. She'd claimed to be his family, his fiancé, his only visitor. There was no mention of Isabel, no notice posted anywhere public, no attempt to search for a missing man with his description, not one. His hands began to tremble. He opened another file, and there it was. A scanned photo from Florence, the one Marissa had told him was destroyed in the accident. Him, Isabel, laughing under an umbrella, dated 2 weeks before the crash. She knew, Marissa knew everything, and she'd buried it all. Meanwhile, Isabel sat in a quiet coffee shop across from Leo, the programmer she'd met on her first day. His brow furrowed as she slid a flash drive across the table. "You want me to decrypt this?" he asked. "It's from the company archives," she said. "I know it's a risk, but if there's anything in here, photos, emails, reports from 5 years ago, I need to see it." Leo hesitated. "This kind of access, it's not exactly in my job description." "You think someone altered his records?" "I know it," she said. He exhaled. "Okay, I'll have to bypass a couple of flags, but I can do it. Just don't tell anyone I helped." She nodded. "Give me 2 hours." Back in the penthouse, Marissa walked through the front door carrying shopping bags, her lipstick perfect, her smile ready. "Babe," she called out, "I found that vintage Bordeaux you like." But the living room was empty, except for one thing, a photo, placed on the glass table. It was the picture from Florence. She stared at it, her heart plummeting. Then she turned, and Adrian was standing in the doorway to his study, holding a manila folder in one hand. His face was stone. "You told them I was dead," he said quietly. Marissa froze. "Adrian, you told the hospital I had no one, that you were my family, my fiancé." "I was your family," she snapped. "You had no one else? No one was coming for you." "You didn't even try," he said. "You saw a blank slate and wrote your name all over it." Tears welled in her eyes, not just fake ones this time. "I loved you," she whispered. "You loved who you wanted me to be," he said. Silence. Then Adrian took one last look at her and walked past, straight to the elevator. He was done believing someone else's story. Now he was ready to find his own. Later that evening, Isabel met Leo again, this time in a quiet side hallway near the employee lockers. "I found something," Leo said, handing her back the flash drive. "But you're not going to like it." She plugged it into her work laptop and opened the file. Video footage, a hospital lobby, a nurse's desk, and then Marissa, walking in with a forged ID, introducing herself as fiancé of the unidentified patient. A few seconds later, she slid a small envelope across the desk. Cash. "I want this patient moved. Private wing. No visitors," she was saying. Isabel's stomach dropped. This wasn't just manipulation, it was theft. Of an identity, of a future, of a life that was never hers to claim. That night, Adrian knocked on the door of a modest apartment in Brooklyn. Isabel opened it, stunned. "I remember the way your hair felt in my hands," he said softly. Her breath caught. "I don't remember the day we met, or what I said when I first kissed you, but when I saw that photo, the one she hid, it all started to come back." She stepped aside, letting him in. "I still don't have every piece," he said, "but I know what the edges feel like." He reached into his coat and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. It was the ring, the one from Venice. "I found it in my things, hidden." Isabel stared at it, eyes full of tears. "You chose me once," he said, "before the silence, before the lies." He placed the ring on the table. "I need time to remember on my own, but I wanted you to know I'm not hers anymore." Isabel reached for his hand. "You never were." They stood in silence, palms pressed together, hearts uncertain, but finally, undeniably, beating in the same rhythm again. Across town, Marissa sat alone in a dark room, watching the city lights through tears. She poured another glass of wine and opened her journal again. Only this time, she didn't write his name. She wrote Isabel's, and under it 3 words, "She won't win." It started with a letter delivered by hand, no return address, no explanation. Just a small cream envelope slipped under Adrian's office door the morning after he left Isabel's apartment. Inside it, a name he hadn't heard in 6 years. Dr. Elena Rosner. Beneath it, a single sentence. "There are things you still don't know about the day of the accident and the days after." Adrian stared at it, the paper trembling slightly between his fingers. Whoever had sent it didn't want to be found easily, but they wanted to be heard, and he was done ignoring the silence. Dr. Elena Rosner, psychiatrist, specializing in trauma-related memory loss, former lead at Eastbrook Rehabilitation Center. Adrian had vague flashes of her face, gentle voice, kind eyes. He remembered being asked questions he didn't know how to answer, but what stuck with him most now was that she had never felt like the others. She never spoke to him like he was only broken. 2 hours later, Adrian sat in a quiet cafe off Lexington Avenue, hands wrapped around a lukewarm mug of coffee. When the door opened, he knew it was her before she said anything. Dr. Eleanor Rosner hadn't aged much, silver streaks in her dark curls. But her presence was the same, calm, intuitive, no wasted movements. "Adrian," she said gently, sliding into the booth. "I was hoping you'd come." He nodded once. "You sent the note?" "No," she replied, "but I'm glad someone did, because there's something I need to tell you." He leaned in, voice steady. "Why now?" She hesitated. "Because for years I was bound by patient confidentiality and the pressure of someone else's influence." "You mean Marissa?" Elena gave him a long look. She visited often, too often, always with answers, always ready to control the narrative. Adrian's jaw tightened. "She told the staff you'd been in an accident while traveling with her, that you two had been engaged for almost a year, that you'd been planning to start a life together." He shook his head. That was all a lie. Elena nodded. "We know that now. But back then, she had documents, photos, a story that never changed." The hospital saw a woman grieving, desperate to care for the man she loved. Adrian stared into his coffee. "She took my past," he said, "and made it hers." Eleanor reached into her bag and pulled out a flash drive. "I kept backups," she said. "My notes, recordings, the ones she tried to have sealed." He looked at it like it was gold. You may not remember everything yet, she said softly. But you were never just blank. There were signs of her. The red-haired girl in your sketches. The way you said the word home when you stared at train stations. Adrian's throat tightened. She was always there, he said quietly. Yes, Eleanor replied. Even when you didn't know her name. Meanwhile, at Blake Industries, Isabel stepped off the elevator into chaos. Half the marketing team was in a frenzy, phones ringing, Slack messages flying. What's going on? She asked Leo, who looked up from his screen with panic in his eyes. Someone leaked internal photos from the archives, he said. Old security footage, private travel logs, emails. Her blood ran cold. What kind of emails? He showed her the screen. They were hers. Old messages from years ago, during the search for Adrian. Some out of context, some doctored. One had been edited to look like she wrote, "Maybe it's better if he's gone." Isabel felt the floor tilt under her. What is this? Leo bit his lip. HR flagged it. Someone's accusing you of exploiting your connection to the CEO. They think you're faking the whole thing to manipulate him. No, she said quickly, heart pounding. That's not... But it didn't matter. The narrative had already spread. Whispers, stares, and one headline already posted online. Love or leverage? Mysterious employee claims past with CEO Adrian Blake. And underneath it, a photo of Isabel walking into the building with Adrian from 3 days ago. Isabel backed away from the screen, her hands cold. She didn't need a memo to know who had done this. Marissa. It was all out war now. That night, Isabel stood in her apartment packing, not because she wanted to leave, but because she couldn't risk destroying Adrian's life with a scandal now tied to her name. She picked up the pendant, her last piece of him, and closed her fingers around it. A knock sounded at the door. She froze. Another knock. Slow, steady. She opened the door, and there he was. Adrian. His eyes looked tired, but clear, like someone who'd finally woken up. "I know the truth now," he said. "All of it." She didn't speak. She couldn't. He stepped in, gently pushing the door closed behind him. "Dr. Rosner gave me the records," he said. "The notes, the tapes. Marissa lied about everything," his voice cracked, "and she tried to ruin you because she knew the truth was finally reaching me." Isabel's eyes filled. "She leaked the photos, the emails," she whispered. "She's destroying my name." "Not anymore," he said. Stepping closer, he pulled something from his pocket, his phone, and tapped the screen. A message already scheduled to go live. A statement. Public. Signed. "I was engaged before the accident. Not to Marissa Lane. To Isabel Hart." He looked up. "I'm taking back my life. All of it." She gasped softly. Tears streaming, and then he did what she thought he never would. He reached out, pulled her close, and kissed her. Not a perfect fairy tale kiss. A kiss full of pain, history, longing, and recognition. Like a clock restarting, like two timelines finally converging. When they pulled apart, he held her face in his hands. "I don't remember everything," he said, forehead resting on hers, "but I remember how I feel with you." And that was enough. Across town, Marissa watched the statement hit the internet. She stared at the screen, unmoving, as everything she had built began to collapse in real time. Investors pulling out, clients withdrawing, her own name trending for all the wrong reasons, and above all, she had lost him. Not to a stronger woman, but to a memory she could never erase. The statement hit every news outlet by morning. CEO Adrian Blake confirms former engagement before amnesia, names Isabel Hart as his true fiancé. Photos of the pendant. A blurry image of the Venice proposal. A clip from the Eastbrook records confirming the misidentification. It was everywhere. Some reporters praised the honesty. Others spun it into gossip. The amnesia affair, they called it. But most people just wanted one thing, to know how the love story ended. Isabel kept her curtains closed for 3 days. The phone didn't stop buzzing. News crews parked across the street. Old college classmates she hadn't spoken to in years sent her awkward, curiosity-laced texts. She stayed quiet, not because she was ashamed, but because the world now saw her as a headline. And love. Love isn't made for the spotlight. Still, what shook her most wasn't the press. It was the email she got on the third morning. Subject: to the woman who got everything I wanted. No name. But she didn't need one. It was from Marissa. Enjoy your fairy tale. I hope you choke on it. One line. That was all. But it burned deeper than any headline, because it wasn't jealousy. It was something colder, like someone who had lost their reflection. At Blake Industries, things were quieter, too quiet. Adrian walked through the halls like a storm had passed but left the damage behind. People avoided eye contact. HR had issued 3 internal memos in less than 24 hours. Marissa was gone, resigned. No statement, no interview, just vanished. But legal counsel confirmed she was under internal investigation: fraud, falsification of records, and abuse of medical authority, all quietly building a case. This time, silence wouldn't protect her. Adrian had been offered PR managers, image consultants, reputation doctors. He refused them all because he wasn't interested in managing the truth. He was ready to live it. That afternoon, he stepped into Isabel's apartment. No cameras, no press, just her, curled up on the couch in an oversized sweater, hair unbrushed, holding a cup of tea like a shield. "I brought food," he said gently, lifting a takeout bag, "from that Thai place in Brooklyn you once said we'd move next to." Her eyes flickered. "You remember that?" He smiled, sitting beside her. "It came back when I passed the bridge, like a smell I didn't know I missed." She didn't speak. But she didn't move away either. Adrian looked around. "They still outside?" She nodded. 2 vans. One reporter offered me a candle with our names engraved. He winced. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "for everything you've had to carry alone." Isabel put down her tea. "You weren't the only one who forgot. I stopped believing you'd ever come back." He reached for her hand. "You never left me," he said. "Not really." They sat in silence for a while. Then she looked at him. "What happens now?" He thought for a moment, then smiled, small and real. "We take it slow, one memory at a time." She raised an eyebrow. "You... taking things slow," he chuckled. "Miracles happen." But miracles, they would soon learn, don't come without shadows. But even after the truth came out, shadows lingered. Marissa filed a lawsuit. Eric found evidence buried deeper than they feared, and the name Dr. Rosner returned again. If she had been there that day, why had she never said? Was there something more to Marissa's grip on him than just lies? Back at the gallery where Isabel once sold her art, a woman entered quietly and placed a sealed envelope on the front counter. "To be held for Isabel Hart," she said. "No signature." "She'll understand." The owner nodded, confused, but took it anyway. Inside, a photo, torn at the edges. It showed Isabel and Adrian, and a second man, unknown. Tall, brown eyes, soft grin, one arm slung around Adrian's shoulder like a brother would. On the back of the photo, "You've forgotten more than just love." No signature. Just initials, EC. That night, Adrian arrived at Isabel's apartment again. He looked tired, not physically, but like someone who had started to open a locked door and didn't like what he saw behind it. "Someone's watching us," he said quietly. "Not the press, someone else." He showed her the photo of Dr. Rosner on the balcony. "She was there that day. I don't remember it. She never mentioned it. Why?" Isabel pulled out the envelope from the gallery. When she showed him the torn photo, something shifted in his face. "Do you know him?" she asked. Adrian stared. "Yes," he said, voice barely audible. Voice barely. "That's Eric." "Eric?" "My brother." Isabel froze. You never told me you had a brother. I didn't, he said, because I thought he died when I was a kid. Silence. Then Isabel whispered, "What if he didn't?" Adrian looked at the initials again. E.C. Eric Carter Blake. The final piece of a past that didn't just vanish, it was buried. And someone had been digging with them, watching, waiting. For what? They didn't know yet. But something told them the love story they were living was only half the truth. The memory came like a ripple through still water. A blue bicycle, gravel underfoot, Adrian falling, scraping his knee, a boy, just a few years older, laughing as he helped him up. "Come on, little bro, you're not made of glass." Eric. It hit him in the middle of the night, 3:12 a.m., so strong it knocked the air from his lungs. He sat up in bed, heart pounding, the photo Isabel had found still on the nightstand. For so long, Adrian had believed he was an only child, that Eric, his older brother, had drowned when they were teenagers. That was what their parents told him, what he accepted, what he buried. But now, what if that wasn't true? What if his first great loss wasn't a tragedy, but a choice someone else made? The next morning, Isabel met Adrian at a quiet bench in Central Park. It had become their unspoken safe place. No photographers, no headlines. Just them and whatever truth surfaced between the trees. He handed her the photo again, the one of Eric. "I remember him," Adrian said softly. "He used to steal my cereal and tell Mom I cried during thunderstorms." Isabel smiled gently. "You never told me about him. I thought I was protecting myself, but maybe I was protecting a lie." He pulled out his phone. "I hired a private investigator this morning," he said. "He's going to track down anything on Eric. Birth records, hospital files, anything." "Do you think he's alive?" she asked. Adrian paused, then nodded. "I think he never left. I think someone just made me forget him." That night, Adrian received a text from the investigator. "Found him. Eric Carter Blake, living under a different name in upstate New York. Runs a small nonprofit, doesn't use his birth records." "Definitely your brother." Adrian stared at the screen, pulse racing, and below it, a second message. Says he's been waiting for this moment for 5 years. The next day, Adrian and Isabel drove out of the city, past highways and empty fields, until they reached a modest town near Ithaca. The building was small, weather-worn. A sign out front read, "Second Chance Foundation, Community Shelter and Support." Inside, a man stood near the back wall, painting over graffiti with practiced ease. He turned when the bell above the door rang. Adrian froze. The man was older now, hair shorter, beard thick, but the eyes, they were unmistakable. "Eric?" The man looked at him for a long moment, then smiled softly. "Took you long enough." Adrian stepped forward cautiously. "You're alive. So are you. That makes 2 of us." They stared at each other in silence. Then without a word they embraced hard, tight, like time folded in on itself. Isabel turned away, eyes misted. When they finally separated, Adrian asked, "Why did you disappear?" Eric shook his head. "I didn't. I was erased." Adrian blinked. "After the accident, I tried everything to reach you, but the trail was gone. Like someone wiped your life clean. I thought you were dead until 3 months ago. I saw you in a news segment with her." "Marissa," Adrian said quietly. Eric nodded. "That wasn't your smile. I knew something was wrong." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, battered notebook. Adrian took it slowly. Inside were sketches, dates, letters never sent. "I saw your photo in a magazine. You didn't look like you anymore. Do you know me? Do you know you used to draw stars on the ceiling when you couldn't sleep?" Adrian swallowed hard. "I never stopped looking for you," Eric said. "But you were gone, until now." Adrian turned the pages slowly. Drawings, notes, a face with green eyes. A name? Isabel. He closed the notebook, holding it tight. "I lost years," he said. Eric placed a hand on his shoulder. "No," he said gently. "You just started getting them back." That night, Adrian sat with Isabel in a quiet diner on the way back to the city. He slid the notebook across the table. On the back page was a phone number and a name. Dr. E. Rosner, confidential only. "Rosner," Isabel whispered. "She helped you remember." Adrian's jaw tensed, or helped someone else control what I remembered. The truth had set him free, but now it was pulling him into deeper shadows. And the scariest part? He wasn't sure who he'd be when all the memories finally came back. Back in the city, Isabel stood in front of a mirror, adjusting her earrings. She looked calm, but inside she was trembling. Adrian had asked her to come to the Blake Foundation's charity gala that night, publicly, with him. It would be their first appearance together since the truth came out. The press would be there, the whispers, the eyes, and maybe even Marissa. But she was done hiding. She had loved him when the world thought he was dead. She could love him now, even if it meant facing every ghost in the room. The Blake Foundation gala shimmered beneath chandeliers and glass walls. Black ties, golden gowns, cameras flashing. Adrian stepped out of the town car in a midnight suit, hair slightly tousled, jaw sharp. But it was his eyes that made the crowd freeze, focused, awake, alive. And then Isabel stepped out beside him, a petrol blue dress, waves of hair falling past her shoulders. And the pendant, the same one from before. Together they walked into the ballroom, and time seemed to hold its breath. Marissa watched from the second-floor balcony. Her dress was darker this time, her smile tighter. They thought it was over. They thought they'd won. But she still had one card left to play. A folder, a document, a signature Isabel once gave, one that could still ruin her. Because the woman they thought was pure wasn't spotless. Downstairs, Adrian walked with Isabel toward the stage. He was about to make his foundation speech when he leaned toward her and whispered, "After this, I need to show you something." She glanced at him. "What is it?" "A name," he said. "The name of the woman who helped me forget you." Meanwhile, behind the ballroom curtain, a man in a suit handed Marissa a sealed envelope. "Is this it?" she asked. He nodded. "Straight from HR archives. She signed it before she was hired. It'll look like she falsified her identity." Marissa grinned. "Then let's end the story tonight." She stepped out from the shadows, an envelope in hand, heading straight for the spotlight, but she didn't notice Eric at the far end of the room, watching, waiting, holding something even more dangerous, the real file, the one she thought she'd destroyed. The room went still. Adrian stepped up to the stage as applause began, but he didn't smile. He wasn't here for show. He looked out over the crowd, investors, press, strangers, and then at Isabel, standing quietly near the edge of the ballroom, her eyes fixed on him. She had stood by him in his darkest moments, not to fix him, not to rescue him, but to remind him who he really was. Now, it was his turn. Adrian cleared his throat, voice firm over the mic. "When I lost my memory, I didn't just lose names or dates, I lost myself." The room grew silent. I was told who I was, what I believed, who I loved, and for a long time, I believed it, because it was easier than facing the hole inside me. But memory, he continued, isn't just stored in the brain. Sometimes it lives in the heart. He turned his gaze to Isabel. And when I met someone who made that heart ache for something I couldn't explain, I had to ask why. He paused. That why led me back to her. "I don't remember everything," Adrian said, "but I remember this, the way I feel when she walks into the room, the way my heart knows her before my mind can catch up." He held up the silver pendant. "She didn't come to rewrite my story. She came to give it back to me." A long beat of silence. Then, a slow, rising applause. But Marissa stepped from the side hall. Heels sharp, envelope in hand, smile, venom sweet. She walked straight to the press table. "This is proof Isabel Hart falsified information to get hired here," she said. She knew Adrian was alive the whole time and used her position to manipulate him. She pointed to the envelope. "Check the clause where she admits to a prior relationship with the CEO." Cameras flashed. Isabel stood frozen. But before the reporter could open the folder, Eric stepped forward, holding another envelope. "Wait, look at the original file first." He handed the press Isabel's actual onboarding forms, verified. Time-stamped. "The file she gave you was doctored," Eric said. "That clause? Added 3 days ago, using Marissa's login credentials. IT traced the edit back to an old admin account. Someone on the inside helped her." A murmur swept the room. "Marissa forged it," he continued. "This is the truth. Inside, Rosner's notes, internal memos, and a line from Marissa herself. Subject unaware of prior engagement. Recommend suppressing external contact until imprinting is successful." Gasps. Marissa's hands trembled. "No," she whispered. "You don't understand. I loved him. I was the one who stayed." Adrian stepped closer. "Calm, but they weren't yours to hold." "I gave you everything," she said. "You took what wasn't yours," he replied. Then softer, "I just wanted to be chosen once." Silence, then she looked away. But as she turned, she whispered, not to him, but to Isabel. "You got your fairy tale, Isabel, but I was the one who stayed in the nightmare." And let him go. Adrian's eyes never left Isabel. He walked toward her slowly, as the world buzzed and faded around them. When he reached her, she shook her head. "I didn't want to hurt you." "I know," he said, "you never did." "I wasn't sure you'd believe me." He smiled. "I don't remember the exact day I fell in love with you," he said. "But I'm choosing you today." He reached into his pocket, and there it was. The ring, the one from Venice, the one that never made it to the wedding. He knelt. "Isabel Hart, will you marry me again?" Tears in her eyes, smile trembling. "Yes," she whispered, "yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger. She fell into his arms. No past, no lies, just them. Two people who had lost everything, Emily, and still found their way back. Later that night, the gala crowd had long gone. Adrian and Isabel stood alone on the rooftop of the Blake Foundation, where it had all started. No speeches, no cameras, just the two of them, and the city lights below. He held her close, forehead resting against hers. "I still don't have every memory back," he whispered. "But this, right now, I'll never forget it." She smiled softly and reached for the pendant around her neck. "Do you remember this?" He brushed his fingers against it. "Not fully," he admitted. "But I remember what it means." She opened the locket. Inside, a tiny photo of them from before, worn, faded, but still there, like the love between them. "We never really lost each other," she whispered. "No," he said, pulling her closer. "We just got a little misplaced." The wind blew gently around them as they stood in silence. Two hearts, quiet now, but finally, whole. 6 months later, the sun fell gently across the Tuscan hills. The villa was small, nothing flashy, just enough for a few guests, fresh pasta, and live music echoing in the air. Eric stood as best man. Leo made a clumsy but heartfelt speech. Even Dr. Rosner sent a handwritten note of apology and a single sunflower in a vase. And Isabel? She walked down the aisle in a simple ivory dress, hair down, smile soft, the same pendant at her throat. A scar of the past, a symbol of hope. Adrian stood waiting, his heart full, no longer searching for what he'd lost, because it was right there. Walking toward him, they exchanged vows under the olive trees. No fanfare, just truth. And when he kissed her, it wasn't the beginning. It was a return to the moment when two souls recognized each other, even before memory did. Just beyond the garden, Eric stood quietly under the shade of an old olive tree, far from the music and laughter, yet close enough to feel it all. He didn't need the spotlight. Watching his brother finally whole, and the woman who helped bring him back, was enough. For the first time in years, the weight on his chest had lifted. Before leaving, he slipped a small envelope onto the couple's bedside table. Inside, a single note in his handwriting: "Family always finds its way back." Some stories don't have perfect endings. Some people get lost. Some hearts get rewritten. But sometimes, if love is strong enough, and if the truth is brave enough, it finds its way back, not in fairy tales, but in quiet moments. In second chances, in memories that never really left. Because some things, no matter how long they've been buried, the heart never forgets. The end. And now I ask you, have you ever lost someone only to find a piece of them again, in a smell, a song, a memory you didn't know still lived in you? Tell me below, what would you do if the love you lost came back, but didn't remember you? Let's talk in the comments, and if this story touched you, don't forget to give it a like. It helps us reach more hearts like yours. And make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story that might just speak to your soul. From 0 to 10, what's your rating for this story? I'd love to know how it made you feel. See you in the next one, because some